Welcome to the Laws of Life podcast. This is your host, Blanca, and today I have the honor of interviewing Jorge Fajardo, founder of KPI Capital. Thank you so much for being here, George.
Thank you for having me. The honor's really all mine. I was so excited when you invited me, so thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's truly my pleasure, and I know we became friends, we became connected through the Alpha Connector group.
That's right.
And proud to say Alpha Connector is also a sponsor of the Laws of Life platform, along with Z Financial, Zohair. So
Yep.
shout out to them. And so tell us a little bit about KPI Capital. What exactly do you do?
Well, so KPI Capital Partners is an evolution of about 20 years worth of experience that I've been building along the way. So originally, I founded back in 2015 Keystone Property Investments. So that's our parent company, as you will. And through that, we started then integrating different verticals. So that's where the KPI comes from. It's the acronym for Keystone Property Investments. When I first started Keystone Property Investments, we were typically just a wholesaling real estate investment company, and I was gradually just scaling the company from a wholesaling into doing some rehabs, and little by little, I started raising capital first from friends and family, and then before you knew it, we were flipping over 40 houses a year just by myself. And so I realized that we needed to start scaling. And that's when I decided to go ahead and open up KPI Capital Partners, which is now our private equity division. And so we started raising capital from that side. And then we opened up KPI Development. We have KPI International Realty, and most recently Keystone Energy. So, we're vertically integrated along the way, and we've just been scaling. So now we have a series of companies all working towards one common goal.
That's incredible. Congratulations on all of your success. And I was reading on your Instagram that you started up with $1,000 in your pocket to get to the point at where you are today. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a funny story. So as you know, I don't practice, but I do have my Juris Doctorate. Back in 2008, I started off in 2002 on the lending side, right? And I had a mortgage company, then became a correspondent lender, and then 2008 happened, right? So the bottom fell out. We had the crisis, and so I took my experience in the banking and lending side, and I started working for a foreclosure defense law firm as their head of loss mitigation, negotiating and structuring different settlements to help our investors or our clients get out of the foreclosure process, right? And so I did that throughout that process, then going to law school. But then sometime around 2015, I decided that I didn't really want to practice. I liked more the investment side of it. And so when I left the law firm, literally had one referral client that wanted to basically, sell their property. We couldn't really help them too much on the legal side. So I ended up putting their property under contract. I put a $1,000 deposit. I helped them. This was they were in foreclosure. It was a probate, and he was in bankruptcy. And so I was helping him, basically get out of all this. And so I bought the property from him for $100,000. It was a small property. I knew it needed a ton of work. I didn't have the money to put the work into it, but I knew I had someone that I signed the contract to for $120,000. So the client was able to walk away with his $100,000, wiped out all the bankruptcy proceedings, wiped out the foreclosure. Obviously, we'll help him through the probate process, so he was able to, to retain the proceeds from the sale. And I essentially ended up turning that $1,000 into $20,000 in a matter of about 3 weeks or so. And then I never looked back from there. So I just kept repeating that process over and over and over. And I continued to educate myself with different strategies. One thing led to another. Then I started, rehabbing, flipping houses. I started with one house, and again, that started to scale. Eventually we're, buying between 7 and 10 houses a quarter, and just moving them through the pipeline. And that's how we continue to grow. And eventually I had so many people asking hey, can we partner with you? Can we invest with you? You're doing great work. And so that's how then now we scaled more into the private equity side. And so now we do large scale syndications. We're regulated, SEC regulated under Reg D, but now we're even looking into opening a Reg A fund. So there's a lot more to come, but it's very exciting, and this is what I like. So even though I do have my JD out of practice, I like to be more on the transactional side, doing deals on the finance, investments.
Of course, I love that. You're a true entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
So
You
how
could
does
say
your
that.
law degree help you in the business real estate world?
You know what? It continues to help me every single day. I mean, day in and day out on a hour by hour, minute by minute
Yeah.
basis. I mean, it's one of the things that obviously as an attorney, I'm sure that if you heard this before, where when you first start law school, the first year, your 1L year, you train to think differently. Like your brain gets rewired in a way where you just look at things from a different perspective, especially in the business world, right? You're looking 8, 10, 12 moves ahead. What could go wrong? You're anticipating for, any possible contingency. And so that's how I approach any deal now, So I'm already looking at all the possible things that could go wrong. How can we protect ourselves from this? And so, like, again, even though, I don't practice in the sense that, I represent clients. I mean, I represent myself, we represent ourselves, on a daily basis. And so all the contracts, all the negotiations, I'm already looking at it from, my attorney's cap on to make sure that we're fully protected. And so far, so good. It's worked out well. We've had a couple, disputes here and there, but we've always been on the prevailing side up until this point. So we'll continue to keep that trend going, hopefully.
How many years were you a lawyer before you made the transition?
So again, I actually just got my JD right as I was opening the company.
Wow.
And I never practiced. So because when I was working on the foreclosure defense side as loss mitigation, director of loss mitigation, I was simply the counterpart to the bank at the mediations or the different legal proceedings where we're just negotiating from the financial side and structuring the settlements while I was attending law school at night. So I was working during the day, full 40-hour week, and then going to law school at night, which, as you know,
wow,
that's its own full-time job in and of
great.
itself.
That shows you're a true hustler,
And
because
so,
that's not easy.
And so, yeah, even though I actually graduated, I was 5th in my class at FIU College of Law, which, by the way, has the highest bar passing rate in the state of Florida. I never even practiced.
What did your parents say when you said, okay, I just finished law school and I'm not going to practice law? Were they upset?
No, I mean, look, my mom's been my business partner for the last 20 years. And the thing is also, when I decided to go to law school, I started law school literally 10 years to the date after I had already finished my undergrad. So I was going to go as a second career after already being in business for 10 years, for an entire decade, just about. And the truth of the matter is, if I'm really being honest, I never really intended to practice. I'll tell you why I really went. It was an instance where, I would get in these adversarial disputes with opposing counsel, and, I would be getting the better of them. And inevitably the question would come, well, you're an attorney. And I'm like, well, no. They're like, well, we don't want to talk to you. You have to. So I would literally walk across the hallway to, the nearest 1L attorney in the firm and pretty much dictate to them what to write. And so they would draft the response with their name behind it, with my argument. And so I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I'm gonna show them. And that's kind of why I did it, just to prove a point.
That's great. You're like, I'll take the lead on this. I'll get my law degree. So you actually worked full time during law school.
Yeah.
So you supported yourself. You were financially independent. Being an older law school student, do you think it gave you an advantage in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So my 1L year, I was 33 years old. I was working at the law firm. I had a 4-year-old baby with another one on the way. A $6,000 a month mortgage, six-figure salary, and I'm here going to law school and and starting the company all at the same time.
So what do you eat for breakfast? What is your secret formula to managing so much?
It's just I'm just hungry, just ambitious. I just want to accomplish goals. That's if I set something, if I set a goal in my mind, I do it. It's about taking that action, and it doesn't hurt to have people depending on you, right? So I look at my kids, my wife, my family. My mom's my business partner, so I know there's a lot of people that are depending on me, and but more than anything, it's just if, just to achieve something for myself, like keep a promise that I make to myself.
So growing up, what did your parents do for a living?
Well, so my mom came from Colombia when I was born in Colombia. And so my mom came from Colombia when I was 3 years old. And I didn't see her until I turned 7, right around the time where I was able to come over to the country. She had just gotten her citizenship as well, and she was just starting off work. I mean, you know she was going to night school as well, like learning, like computer classes at the time. I'm talking back, what, 1987, 1988. And I watched her, put herself through education, and she worked at various companies. Eventually, she was more on the bookkeeping, accounting side, which right now she handles all of our books. She handles, all the finances for our company. And so, yeah, I mean, I just watched her like just really work, various like clerical and making her way up, and I just knew that I wanted to make something more of myself, and I just always had this sort of like innate sense that I don't know what it would be, or how it's gonna look or turn out, but I knew that I would, you know, be
So what?
successful at something.
No,
So
that's so obviously your mom was up. Is she still with us, your mama?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
so
yeah,
she's your
yeah.
partner. She's
Yeah,
doing the bookkeeping.
yeah.
So
She
your
does.
mom
She
is your
runs.
hero, I take it.
Yeah, I
Sounds
mean,
like.
she's always been there. Yeah, she was a single mother for many years, and she instilled a great work ethic in me, and this sort of like inner strength. Anytime you want to sort of quit or throw in the towel, it's like, what? No, like you gotta keep going.
So
And
do you
so
think you modeled her discipline?
yeah, yeah, her discipline, her work ethic,
Was
her
she
no
very strict with
nonsense.
you?
Not overly strict. I don't think she needed to be strict with me because I've always just sort of, and I think that's the thing why her and I get along so well, because I think that's one of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur, because I have a sort of like thing against authority in that sense. Like I like to be the one in charge, you know. And so she's always sort of let me be my own. It's like, so it's like what I try to instill in my kids now. It's like doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, not because someone is asking you to do it. So even to this day, it's like I want to do right by someone, not because I have to, but because it's the right thing to do, sort of mentality. And so she always let me, kind of like do my own thing, but I always try to. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't an angel or anything. I got into my fair share of problems and trouble as a kid, and in high school and even in college. But who doesn't, right? But yeah, she kind of let me find my way. So
What is it like working with your mom in the business? What happens when you disagree on something potentially?
oh yeah, I mean we'll butt heads every once in a while, and usually it's I'm the one runs the show, but then there's also a certain line where I could sense in her tone or look that she gives me where I've kind of crossed it,
The look.
and then it's like, okay, let me walk that back a little bit, and so we kind of work it out. But at the beginning, I mean, it's been 20 plus years, right? Since about 2004, we've been business partners throughout multiple different endeavors. But it used to be where it kind of would take over, like blur into the personal side. So we'd be sitting, on the holidays or weekends, birthdays, and then we started talking about business, and eventually we had to have the conversation where we're like, okay, so family time is family time. We'll talk about work or any issues at work, you know, during working hours in the office, and then the weekends are the weekends, or family time is family time. So we've been able to kind of, it's taken many years to sort of find our way through that, but I think we've kind of fallen into a nice groove now. So
That's a really good law of life. When you work with family, don't talk about business during family time. I love that
yeah,
as a rule. I think that's
yeah,
good because
yeah,
it's difficult even for me as an entrepreneur. So many times, I just love entrepreneurialism and business and marketing so much. I just want to talk about it all the
Yeah,
time.
but then you sort of like it blurs into like all your, and especially if it's someone that's very close to you, like a close family member, because then that's all you
So,
talk about.
so tough.
Yeah, and it just creates more stress, and then sometimes it's like you can never disconnect, and so it
Exactly.
takes its toll. So now that we've sort of worked that out, it's been a lot better.
What would you say is the number one law of life you learned from your mother?
you know, uh, Finish what you start. So if you set a goal, do everything you have to do to accomplish it, and that's really the main. And I've watched her do it. It hasn't even been something that she's necessarily like actually said to me directly, but I've just watched her throughout my life, over the years, actually, accomplishing one thing after the other, and it's sort of like innately been ingrained in me. And I think that's important because a lot of people start and then they quit. They run into the first challenge or the first complications, and then they give up and then they start something else. So they're just always starting something new and then quitting and then starting the next big thing, and then they're never really accomplishing anything. And that's something that I try to instill in my kids now.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, going back to the business side, what's your advice for the entrepreneurs out there watching? Like, I want to be successful like George. Like, how the hell did he get to where he is now, back from square one? Where's the best place to start if somebody wants to follow your path of investing in real estate?
Well, number one, just make sure that you're clear on what it is that you want to do. You have to be very clear on that because again, it goes back to what I was just saying. If you're not clear on what you want to do and why you want to do it, you're gonna just quit at the first sign of trouble. The first obstacle, the first challenge, it's just gonna break you and you're gonna quit. Right. So you have to really understand why you want to do it. And when it comes to real estate, itself, I mean, look, when I started my real estate investment journey, I didn't listen to the naysayers that would say, well, no, you need to have a lot of money to invest in real estate. You already have to have, $1 million, or you have to have all this knowledge. You have to first educate yourself because you need to have the knowledge. And there's strategies that you can use where you don't have to have a ton of money. Like I started this company with $1,000, but I had the knowledge and I went out and educated myself even more. And that's the main thing. I could have easily said, well, I've been lending for 10 years. I've been a lender. I just finished law school. I've gone through however many, foreclosure litigation cases and helped, structure hundreds of settlements. I know everything. But, and that would have been very, short-sighted and pompous of me. Instead, I started learning other strategies that I didn't know. Even to this day, I continued learning new strategies. So it's about continue to grow and evolve and educate yourself and not drink your own Kool-Aid, right? It's like you can't just think that you know it all, right? You have to continue being open and receptive to learning new things and continue to grow and develop. And I think that's the main thing. So, but again, to get started is start to educate yourself and really, you know, focus on what it is that you want to do and learn how to do it. Or if not, associate yourself and surround yourself with people that are already doing what you want to do, have already achieved those certain goals, or have arrived where you want to go, because they'll help you get there quicker.
Are there any specific resources or thought leaders you recommend to our friends out there watching that they could refer to start that learning journey?
I mean, look, one book that I've loved and I've probably read like 3 times over the last 20 years. It's, the old, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? That gives you a good sense of what real estate investing is all about, But, over the years, I've had a lot of different mentors, a lot of different people that that I've learned a lot from. And now that's something that I think is the next step in my evolution, where I want to start sort of paying that forward. And so now we're in the process as well of launching our own educational platform. And really what I want to do is share my journey, right? Because where I feel where I'm at now is maybe more attainable to someone that's getting started versus, let's say, like a Grant Cardone, for example, who's 3 billion, 4 billion AUM. That might seem too far out of reach, right? Whereas what I'm trying to teach is, listen, this is how, I'm sharing my journey. This is how I've come along. These are the steps that I've taken. And, we can continue to grow together from there. And so that's where the perspective that I'm coming from. And so I want to be able to share what I've learned along the way, the knowledge that I've gained throughout these years. And so now I want to start helping other people
Oh, I
do that as
love that.
well. Yeah.
So you're going to start an educational course.
Yeah. So we've already launched that. We have Tyler here who's running our social media, and we're getting ready to launch that literally like this month.
That
And
is
it's
so
going to be the
exciting.
educational, of course, with the mentorship and the truth is, I mean, we have a lot of people that have worked for us over the years that um, have learned and have worked with us and now have gone on to start their own companies and I just look at it as just more people to collaborate with, to grow together with. I partner with them on different deals. We do other things together, and I think that's what it's all about. It's just kind of sharing the knowledge and then just continuing to grow together.
I love that. What's the name of your educational pillar called?
So we're still work in progress. It's going
Okay.
to be within our KPI educational
Nice.
platform, so like KPI Academy, something along those lines. So once we launch it, I'll be sure to let you know so that you can share with your audience.
That is so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. And how long is the course going to be? Is it going to be over a period of time or?
Yeah, so it's going to have multiple modules. The way that I look at it is, a lot of times what you see out there is that there's the courses that you see are very specific. So there's, only like wholesaling course or only a syndication course or, whatever, Airbnb or whatever the one specific course may be. But the way that I look at it, the way that I scale my business is by stacking different strategies one on top of the other. The analogy I like to use is like, when you have a tool belt, right? You can't use a hammer for everything. Sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you need pliers. You need different tools for different jobs. And so there's a lot of different deals that will come across your desk. But if you don't know how to apply a different strategy, you may be leaving money on the table. You might pass on opportunities that could otherwise be very beneficial for you. So my strategy is that we want to be able to sort of like, again, and kind of through the progression that I took through my journey is sharing, okay, if you want to get started, depending where you are along that timeline, you can start here, or maybe you can start here. There's different strategies they can use along the way to continue to grow and then scale and stack different strategies. I was having this conversation earlier with like one of the strategies, wholesaling, right? Where you put a house, right? You can put it under contract and then you assign that contract to a buyer, you make the spread, the arbitrage, whatever you want to call it, right? But if you could do it with $100,000 or $200,000 house, you could do it with a hotel. You could do it with a multifamily. Right now, we're doing that with a 90-acre piece of land, industrial land. That's not really our niche, but I see the opportunity, and we're talking about a $10 million transaction using the exact same strategy that I learned with that first $100,000 deal that I did.
Wow.
Right, and so that's what I'm referring to when I say applying different strategies and growing.
I
As you
love
go.
that.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be absolutely amazing. So are you going to also teach about Airbnb in that course too? Are you a believer of the
It
Airbnb?
depends. It depends. I actually just talked about this on my social media recently. I think Airbnb is dying out a little bit. At one point, we had 26 doors, and and a lot of those I've converted back to traditional rentals. I think the Airbnb market has gotten very saturated. There's so much competition that your revenue is really low. Then once you start factoring the overhead, the turnover, the fees, it's the margins have really like just about disappeared. I mean, my formula used to be that for it to make sense, it was a 2.5x multiple on my monthly expenses. And this was my rule of thumb. If my overhead was 2,000 a month, let's say, all in, I needed to make 4,500. That was no exception. 4,500, 5,000 a month gross, and net my difference after expenses, and that doesn't really exist anymore. So the only way Airbnb works is if it's got to be like a very unique, like a theme, an experience, sort of like a destination. You can't just take your home, a property in like here locally in Miami or Broward, and expect it to really do what it used to 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
That's
So
interesting.
Airbnb, and even then, Airbnb, I kind of fell into it sort of like by accident because I was rehabbing homes and I put them on the market, and I met someone at a networking event, and we came up with the idea that I would let them furnish it, so it would be staged, but then we would rent it out for that 30, 45 days, 60 days it would be on the market, through Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And monetize it during that time. And one thing led to another, and I started keeping them and taking them off the market and keeping the properties. I still have several like that in Miami. But again, now I'm converting them more into just traditional rentals. But hey, they're sitting there at, 2.75, 3% interest rates. So, I'm not I'm not
There,
gonna sell those now,
exactly.
So
No, that's really cool. So do you think residential is the best first step for the starter entrepreneur?
it's probably the lower barrier of entry as compared to commercial. Because, commercial is not like a good old boys club, but it's a very small community when you really think about it, and it's harder to break into. You have to have a lot more technical knowledge. You have to have you know more relationships in that market to get in. It took me a while to break into the commercial. It really did, and so I would say that residential is a lot easier to break into at the beginning, especially if you're looking to enter the real estate investment space with as little money as possible. That
Now,
would be the way to go.
okay. And in terms of AI, have you applied AI in your business model?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so we were talking earlier, on the KPI Capital side, how now we're also venturing into some VC stuff and investing in some fintech and some tech companies. And our mutual friend that set up some meetings for us when I was in Dubai was to go speak to some VCs because we're seed investors in an AI software company. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so what this company does is they created a software that basically offers a full-on back-end solution for your company. So it handles inbound, outbound calls, emails, scheduling, um, texting, sales, customer service, and I mean it's a great platform. And so um, yeah, we're going to be rolling that out pretty soon. We're already using it in our day-to-day business, and so we're about to start rolling that out soon. So we have
That's exciting.
some investors that are very interested in it. So could be that's one of the next big things
I
that we'll be
love that.
rolling out as well.
You definitely sound very busy. Do you sleep?
Well, when I can.
That's amazing. I'm excited. I'm excited to see. I'm happy to hear that you're applying it to your company. That's remarkable.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like anything else, it's you have to put your money where your mouth is. So if you believe in something and you have to show that you believe in it, right? That you're backing it by, applying it. And so I'm always been a firm believer in that.
So in one article you had written, you said, you got to play big. Don't play small. Take aggressive action. Does does that rule apply to anyone at any level of their journey, or do you think you should take one action at a time, or use the stacking at the beginning?
Well, I think, you got to have the vision, right? And sure, you're not going to necessarily take, one leap from A to Z in just one leap, but you got to have the destination in mind. And so, whether it takes several steps as you continue to climb on your journey, you still have to have the big picture in mind because that's the problem that a lot of people have nowadays is that they're just thinking too small, right? Um, I'll give you an example. I remember when doing one flip was sort of like a big deal. I mean, I could remember. I mean, like if it was yesterday, I'm like pacing around my living room, you know, trying to figure out where am I going to get the money for this, for this flip. Oh my gosh, we have to do the roof. I mean, I was like, that's so like scary to me at the time, right? Now we're, building, multi-million-dollar homes from the ground up, buying, 300 unit multifamily properties and it's just become you kind of grow out of your comfort zone. So every time you're in the box, your job is to continue to kind of grow out of it and then create. Now that becomes your new comfort zone, and that's how you continue to grow and scale and really evolve. I think it's the natural evolution, because what happens is, if you notice, a lot of the time the people that are unsatisfied or suffer from, let's say, like depression, anxiety, a lot of times, it's because internally, whether they're aware or not, they're not fulfilling the full potential, and then that creates the misalignment inside of you that manifests itself in these other sort of things. And so, when you're the most fulfilled, is when you're continuing to grow and challenge yourself.
That is very true. What is the biggest obstacle you've ever faced in your life?
Um, Myself. It's your mindset all the time. I mean, you're your own biggest adversary, really, because if your mindset's not there, I mean, all your weaknesses, all your doubts, all your self doubts. So unless you're constantly working on your mindset and really focusing on how to better yourself, I mean, you're going to be your own worst enemy. You're going to sabotage yourself. You're going to find ways to subconsciously stop yourself from achieving your true potential.
What is the most difficult event in your life that you ever faced?
When my sister passed away. So back in 2008, my sister, she was 18 years old, and she passed away tragically in a automobile accident, like unexpectedly. Like, I talked to her 2 hours earlier, and then 2 hours later, I got a call from the police officer on scene, and so it's just spur of the moment like that. And so that was really the most difficult thing that my family ever had to go through. I mean, it was a tremendous tragedy,
So
and for a
sorry.
long time, this was back in 2008, and so for a long time, I was sort of like in that sort of like destructive mindset where nothing mattered, and but then I came to a point where there was like this fork in the road, and I said, okay, I could either go down this road and just be destructive and just not, like throw away everything we built, or you know use this, like figure out a way to use this as something positive. And since then, I've been we started a foundation in her name, and she was an organ donor, an organ and tissue donor, and so through her donation she was able to save the lives of 8 people.
Oh, wow.
And so now, for the last 15 years, I've been on the board, the advisory board of Donor Legacy Services Foundation, where we basically go out and create awareness about tissue donation, because she was specifically a tissue donor, because she wasn't able to donate her organs because of the way that the accident occurred. And so now I just go around the country, literally, like speaking about it,
Wow.
and also sharing her memory, and really growing her legacy. And so, I mean, there's events in her honor to this day, almost 20 years later, and her legacy has actually grown, I mean, larger than life. And so that's something that I'm very proud of, because um, I was able to turn a senseless tragedy into something, positive.
I love
So,
that. What was your sister's name?
Tuli Gonzalez, yeah.
And what was your favorite thing about Tuli?
So, her thing was always like to give, to help other people. So she was a very talented musician. So she was a violinist. She
Mm.
played in the Miami Youth Symphonic Orchestra. She was second chair in Carnegie Hall. She was on full scholarship at in a um, in a music procedure music school in Boston. And so while she was here, she was always looking for ways to help. Um, she would take time out of her day after high school, like at 11th grade, senior year. She would, rather than going out and hanging out with her friends and do what other kids do, she would go and volunteer her time giving free music lessons, violin lessons at like underprivileged schools that didn't have music programs. She would have like charity events to raise money for different causes, and so she was always giving her time. And as a matter of fact, it was, I didn't, it wasn't after her passing, but after she passed, it was something that sort of like became instilled in me because I wanted to carry her legacy, which, you know, I wasn't thinking of those things. I was just, like any young kid, just kind of, selfish, doing your own thing, right? And then because of, learning from how she was, it actually helped me become a better person as well.
I love that. And I
Yeah,
love how you're keeping her legacy alive.
yeah,
And so we should definitely um, interview the foundation
yeah, yeah. That would be amazing. That would
and
be
keep
amazing.
us, always let me know about events
Yeah.
so that we can share those and and
Absolutely,
support you in that
absolutely.
for
Yeah, we're
sure.
doing events at the state level. I mean, we have representatives in Tallahassee. We have a lot of backing from and support from the legislature. Um, so our big months are April, March and April, because it's Donate Life Month nationwide. So if you've ever seen during April certain buildings in downtown lit up blue and green, or that's us. That's because
Wow.
it's yeah, yeah, and it's actually nationwide, and so. We have a big concert once a year. We just had a concert this year, hosted by the city of Doral. So the mayor, Christy Fraga, was part of the event, and we had like big support. Um, Last year we did it in Sunny Isles, and we had big community support. So I mean, yeah, we do very big events, and we do stuff throughout the states, and
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
I'll definitely look forward to being a part of that. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, I'll certainly let you know next time we have something coming up.
So it sounds like all these, everything that you do and all the relationships that you build, do do most of those relationships come from networking in the community? Tell me a little bit about your networking philosophy.
I would definitely say so. For me, it's about creating long-term relationships. It's not about being transactional. And once I set out to really start to build these true connections with people, whether it's just one person at a time, and I was having this conversation yesterday where if I go to a networking event, I'd rather make one or two significant connections versus meeting 100 people that you're never really going to be able to talk to, really on a deeper level. And so about 2 years ago, I set off on creating like our own community as well. So that's where we launched our event series. It's called Capital Insights, where we try to bring our community together as we grow. So it's like our investors, our affiliate partners, strategic partners, our attorneys, our lenders, everybody that's within our ecosystem comes together. And we have a special guest speak at each event, and a different special guest. And we just want everybody to kind of grow together and create that sense of community. And it's really been honestly, like, business aside, it's like been very fulfilling just to be able to kind of create this community and really that have that, like, that sense of belonging and connection with a lot of the people that continue to come and grow with us.
That's incredible. Do you get together once a month, or how often does the group meet?
Yeah, so we meet once a month. We host our event the last Thursday of each month. We had a great panel just this past week. Now in our August event, we're actually going to have Christian Ceballos, who's a Miami-Dade County councilman who's actually running for City of Miami, mayor for City of Miami. But aside from the political, he's an entrepreneur. He's been in real estate for many years. He has some great ideas for how to create business and more prosperity to. So we're actually he's going to be our guest speaker at our next event. We're working on some bigger stuff. Hopefully we'll have some of the FIFA officials at our next event after that. So we're trying to bring big things to our community and have um, you know very 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 important people that can bring a lot of value to.
I love that.
Yeah.
How can our audience learn more about that community?
Well, you can follow us on our Capital Insights page in our Instagram. You can follow me, personally, my Instagram, or go to kpicapital.com. our
Sure.
website and reach out in any way. So there's
Wow.
a lot of different ways you can reach
You
us.
have a lot of pillars to your platform: community, education, investment, real estate. And do you have a big team that helps you run all these divisions of
Oh
your
yeah,
brands?
yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be able to do it myself. So yeah, we have an excellent team of core solid group, and then everybody around us that provides all the different support. So yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
that's the only way to do it. To be able to grow is you can't do it alone. You know?
So, what is your ultimate dream? Where would you like to be in 5 years?
So in 5 years, I want our private equity and our venture capital to really grow. I have this vision where we have a Reg A, very solid fund. I mean, if you're familiar with Blackstone,
Yes.
that's that's where ultimately, maybe not in 5 years, it might take 20,
Okay.
but that's where we aspire to continue
Is
growing.
there
And
a
so
target number of assets you want to manage? People always say, I manage X dollars, X million,
yeah,
X
yeah.
billion.
So
Is
I mean,
there?
right now we have a 9-figure portfolio or AUM. We just hit 9 figures. Um, we're just scraping 9 figures. But yeah, I mean, look, I want to have a B in front of it.
All
Why not?
right. Hey, look, I got the B for
There
you.
you go.
There's
There
your
you go.
sign.
Why not? Right? Why think small? Why settle for who knows? Maybe we get there in 10 years. Maybe we don't get there at all. But at least it's there, right? So you have to think big and you have to go for your goal. So.
I love that. You're so positive, and it just seems like you have so much on your plate. How do you not get overwhelmed?
Um, well, first of all, there's times that I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I'm a superhero of any kind. No, we all get overwhelmed. Listen, at the end of the day, that's when you got to go sit back and really focus on your why, what's your purpose, working on your mindset, remind yourself what you need to do, focus on the things you can control one step at a time, and then sort of just kind of recalibrate, recenter yourself, and just go back at it. And so anytime that I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, is because when I really focus, I realize that it's maybe there's something that I need to be doing that I'm not doing. So then when I refocus and then start actually recalibrating and taking action in the right direction, it sort of like works itself out. But it's all mindset. I mean, you have to work on your mindset. You have to.
So, what do you do to keep your mindset so amplified?
Well, I try to take in positive stuff. I avoid any negativity. Um, I'm always working on sort of like elevating my frequency, staying in a positive mood by reading certain like I said, stuff that's positive, right? Just kind of working on bringing that into my surrounding. And if someone is negative, people are being negative, I try to remove myself from that situation or from that scenario, so that it doesn't affect me. And so, like I said, I try to surround myself mainly with positive people. And anybody that's been to our events will tell you that's sort of like the atmosphere, because once you start to put out that kind of energy, that's what you attract.
Mm,
And I'm very proud to say that as our community continues to grow, is attracting the right type of people. So
I love that.
yeah.
And what is your number one law of life?
My number one law is know your purpose. Know your purpose, because we can sit here and talk about business. We can sit here and talk about material things, monetary things. And at the end of the day, once you achieve all that, if you don't have your true purpose, all that stuff, you'll find it's just meaningless.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
And I hope everybody out there watching learned something. I know I did. Thanks so much for watching.